You're listening to the Good Food CFO podcast, where we focus on financial strategies for building a profitable food business. I'm your host, Sarah Delavan. Today on the podcast, I am joined by Anna Bradshaw. She is a copywriter and content strategist specializing in website copy and email marketing for CPG brands. Anna's approach combines data-driven research with a proven copywriting process to create rich, flavorful brand messages that generate more sales online. And today, she's sharing how to do just that. Let's get to it. We have had brand experts, social media and ad experts, and a Shopify expert on the show to discuss attracting your audience, getting them to your website, and even what target conversion rates and average cart value you should be looking for your good food brand. But the missing link has been how we convert your website visitors to customers until today. Anna Bradshaw, welcome to the podcast.
Hi, Sarah. Thanks so much for having me. I'm glad to be here.
I'm so glad that you're here. As I just mentioned, we've talked a lot about, the investment that you can make in finding your audience and attracting your audience to bring them to the website. And, in order to make the most of your return on investment, how to kind of structure your website and what targets to hit. But it became very clear to me that we were missing a piece. How do we make sure that once our visitors get to our site, that they're actually going to purchase? And from what I've learned over the years, copywriting has a big part to play.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the worst thing is to invest a whole lot of resources into, driving traffic to your site and then leave your site unoptimized and leave all those sales on the table. So copy, which just refers to the text on your site, it's any of the text that you use in marketing anywhere really. But your website copy can help make that sale. And in fact, that's its only job really, is to sell for you. And it's awesome when it's optimized and working well, because it connects directly with what your customers need to hear from you in order to click that add to cart button.
So to me, a numbers person, writing website copy is such an overwhelming process to even start to think about. And what we love to do here on the podcast is to break things that may seem complex or overwhelming down into sort of bite-sized, approachable pieces. And so I know you're going to help us to walk through it today. What is our starting point when we are just even thinking about creating copy that will sell our products on the website?
Yeah. If you could only take one thing away from this and one sort of mindset shift, it would be to write for your customer, not for yourself, not based on, assumptions that you make about your customer, but to really get to know your audience and write specifically to them. So for a lot of food founders that start at farmers markets, that's an ideal, foundation for writing copy, because you have real face-to-face conversations with customers and potential customers all the time. But if, you're establishing an online business and getting to know who is coming to my website, who are my potential online customers, then doing an email survey is a great way to do that. And it's never too early to start collecting those email addresses. So as soon as you can, you don't even need your website up and running yet. You can start collecting email addresses, because it's a great way to keep in touch. And when I do this with clients, they're always like, will anyone reply? Will anyone actually take time to fill out this survey? And it's surprising how many people do. People want to share their thoughts with you. So get to know your audience. And when you do, you'll find out what their pain points are, what their questions are about your product, and what their objections are. What are the sticking points that keep them from, purchasing right away? And then you can use your copy to address all of those objections and overcome them.
Amazing. So I want to ask a potentially very basic question about copy. So it seems to me that sort of general copy on your website, maybe like the About Us page and those, sort of the main, I don't want to say the main pages, but the non-product pages, the approach to that copy is quite different than the approach to writing copy specifically for your product. Can you talk a little bit about that, if they are in fact a big different, and how, and then maybe how we think about product copywriting specifically?
Definitely. So when I approach writing a website, I put all of it through the lens of driving toward a sale.
Mm.
So none of it should just be there to look pretty or sound good. It should all drive toward a sale. But, your about page and, your blog pages serve other purposes as well. And often they're sort of higher in the funnel. So if we think about a sales funnel where the sale is at the bottom and, cold traffic is at the top. Those other pages are closer to the top of the funnel, like your homepage, and you're introducing the brand, and sometimes you're doing education about your brand or about your products. Like if you sell a flaxseed oil based product, then you're educating people about the benefits of flaxseed oil. And once people get to your product page, that product detail page, they should already be somewhat aware of your product, and you want to drive them toward actually making that decision to purchase. So this is really the place for that sales-oriented copy, whereas other pages might be more about storytelling and education.
Okay, that makes perfect sense. I love thinking about the website itself as the sales funnel. The website is part of a greater sales funnel, but then on your
Mhm.
site, to think about it that way, I think is really, for me, it kind of clicked a little bit. That makes a lot of sense. So now we're thinking specifically about our product page. What are we looking for in terms of the type of copy? And what things do we need to address to turn our visitors into customers?
Yeah, you want to use your product copy to overcome common objections.
Mm.
And these vary a little bit from product to product, which is why it's so important to know your specific audience and their objections. But, a few common ones are, will I like the taste of this? We're not always used to ordering new food online. And so you have to sort of give people an idea of what it'll taste like without the advantage of an in-person, free sample or an in-person conversation. People, might be asking, is this practical? Will I actually use this? How can I use this? Like, can I use this with, meat? Can I use this with vegetables? Is this a dessert or a snack or breakfast? So all those questions. And then, for a lot of good food brands, you're selling a higher priced product than, the competitor's cheaper, lower quality grocery store version. And so the question becomes, is this worth the higher price? And those are all questions that you can overcome on your product pages with your copy.
So one of the things that we've heard a lot of brand strategists and sales strategists say about food products, it's hard to sell it by saying it tastes great, right? And I think I see that on websites like this product, it tastes great. And I would assume that as the maker of the product, you are going to believe that it tastes great. Are there any pointers or things you can share with good food business owners for maybe thinking about how to describe their product in a different way that is actually beneficial to converting?
Yes. So you want to be as specific and real with your description as possible. You want people to open the package when they get it, take that first bite and say, yes, this is delicious, better than I imagined, but also it's exactly what it was described on the website as being. So if you are selling a hot sauce, you be very specific with how hot it is. And I think one important thing for this is getting other people's honest opinions, and capturing their honest wording when they try your product. Because we're not always the best judge. If you are selling hot sauce because you love super hot peppers, then you're not the most objective person to decide how hot it is, right? Or, with the dessert, you might not be super objective with how sweet something is. So having honest people in your life who can describe it, and then you can say, okay, this is the wording we'll use on our website because this is how it'll actually taste when a new customer tries it.
Yeah.
And similarly, use customer reviews and testimonials to kind of brag about your product for you. If you are selling a more unusual product and it's something that maybe is a newer ingredient in the US and people aren't as familiar with the flavor. Let people give testimonials and reviews that say, I had never tasted this, beverage flavor, but it's delicious and I love it. I'm so glad I tried it.
Yeah.
To kind of give social proof. Social proof is just that knowing other people are doing something makes us want to do it more, or it makes us feel more comfortable doing it if
Yeah.
we know other people are already doing it.
Yeah.
So knowing that other people have tried your product and really enjoy it is really helpful. So obviously have customer reviews as a app on your site where that's, you can automate that process, and that's another conversation. But you can also take specific short quotes from really great reviews and pop them right into your description copy. And it's a fantastic way to describe your product in an accurate and appealing way.
Yeah. As you're talking about describing something accurately, I'll share a little story about a client that I have she's a fisherman, and she is the most like amazing salmon that she sources or catches in Alaska. And she smokes some of it. And I am not a fan of smoked salmon, but she has one on her website called Whisper Kissed. And I was like, if it's kissed with smoke, it's not like super smoky, because she has one called like log cabin smoked or something. And I was like, I definitely
Mhm.
know I don't want that one. But I know this, I mean, I know the person, but I was willing to try the product because of the description. And when I got it and tried it, I was like, I actually really love this. So it works. I am a
Yeah.
happy customer as a result of like a really accurate description for a product that I thought I didn't like, that I just kind of crossed off my list previously.
Yeah, that's such a perfect example. And so make sure that you're differentiating between the varieties that you sell. For one thing, make it easy for people to have an entry point into your brand and to know which product to start with instead of being overwhelmed with a bunch of flavors that all sound the same or varieties that, all seem too similar.
Yeah.
So don't be afraid to differentiate and highlight the differences between each one. And, remember that your product is not for everyone, and it's better to have an accurate description and build lifelong fans of people who love your product and love the flavor than it is to try to make it sound just, delicious or
Right.
taste great. Everyone will love it. When in reality, people, not everyone will love it. And the people who would might miss out because they don't have that clear expectation and they can't imagine what it's going to be like to have your product.
Yeah. So we've got really clear descriptions that are helping to overcome any objections that our audience seems to have for the product. Is there anything else that we should be fitting into the product description and copywriting for the product?
Yeah, so I think along with describing the flavor and experience really accurately, highlight your best ingredients.
Mm,
Highlight those ingredients and not just what they are, but your specific ones. So how did you choose them? Are they organic? Are they locally sourced? Are they a specific variety of grape in your grape jelly? And if
right.
so, why? That really helps, especially with that price point piece. It's one thing to just see grape jelly that you're selling and then compare it to Smucker's. But it's another thing when the grapes are from, your local vineyard in your backyard in California and their specific variety or whatever.
Yeah.
So highlight those ingredients and really play them up and, don't go overboard in your product description. Make sure that it's not becoming just like a laundry list.
Mm.
So choose the key ingredients that are really the star of your product and highlight those.
That as a former food buyer for like local and regional, like really high quality ingredients, writing a menu was always so hard because I wanted to put everything on the menu and it was too wordy and people, would get lost. And so I have a little bit of practice in editing and like what will be the most important thing to really catch someone's attention about a particular ingredient. So I'm relating to what you're saying from that experience. It's smart.
Yeah, and that's another place where knowing your audience comes in so key, because you can ask them and you can hear from them what was most important to them. Like what did they care about? What stuck out to them? What flavors are they tasting the most? And
Mm.
so then you can focus on those elements. Even though you know you love every single ingredient, from the baking soda and the salt and every single thing you want to talk about, but make sure that you're focusing on the ones that your customers will care about the most.
Love that. Anything else that we should be including in our product descriptions?
Well, we talked about like the fun part, but there's also the technical details that are easy to, just overlook. Or if you have a photo of your product and, it has the label with, 4 ounces, you'll be like, oh, I don't have to call it out, but call out like how many ounces are there, and then call out what's the maintenance? Like what's the shelf life? Does your product need refrigeration? Um, can it be frozen? How long can people keep it? And then how are they actually going to use it? If I'm purchasing like a simmer sauce for stir fries, will it taste good with meat and poultry and fish or veggies, or, only pork, or, like
Yeah.
highlight what will really be the best use of your product, so that people know, okay, if I never eat pork, then this isn't the sauce for me.
Yeah.
Or yes, this is perfect. I can use it with my veggie stir fries and it's fine, even though I don't eat meat. Um, so that kind of detail that's, maybe more on the technical or practical side can be really helpful. And when you get to those details, be sure you're using, bullet points, make it easy for people to skim. Don't have huge blocks of text with that info, but it's just helpful to overcome those last minute objections before people click that add to cart button.
Yeah. I love all of this information and it's so helpful, but it sounds like a lot of detail. Um, do you have like, is this like a full page that we need per product, or can we realistically like fit this into a small blurb under a photo? Any kind of thoughts or information on that for people listening who maybe are thinking what I'm thinking, like this seems like a lot of detail?
Yeah. So don't be overwhelmed. You can go the full page route, or you can do a really simple scaled back version of this. So, start with a rough draft and don't limit yourself, just get it all out there. But then when it comes time to edit, be kind of ruthless, like you did with your menus. I'm sure menus could be so much longer if we included all the details about each dish.
Yeah.
So start with, I always recommend that clients create a little headline for each product. So usually you see just the product name at the top, but give it a headline like you're really selling it.
Yeah.
Say something unique about it. You use your brand voice. If your brand voice has humor, use a little humor. If each SKU in your lineup has a specific use case, like say what that is. So like the best breakfast ever with this waffle mix, things like that. And then just have a really short description where you get into that description of the flavor and sort of painting a picture of what the experience of using it will be. And then use bullet points liberally to go through the rest of your content, like those maybe secondary ingredient highlights you want to talk about and those technical details.
Awesome.
So that's a way you can DIY this and create a really powerful description, even with a very simple, uncustomized Shopify template. Now, if you have, the time and the resources to build out a full page, you can get into infographics, photos of the raw ingredients. All those visuals really help amplify the message of your copy, and help break it up and give you room to just expand more on what makes your product so great.
Yeah. I love that. Now, I'm curious what your opinions are. Obviously, you're a professional copywriter. So there are, of course, you recommend working with a copywriter, I assume. But like so many things, I think there's a right time for people to invest. And I'm curious if you have any recommendations or just sort of guidelines on when to, as you said, like DIY this versus when it might be the right time to invest in hiring a copywriter to help you?
Yeah, definitely. So if you want to make sure that you're getting a return on your investment, I think it's best to, make sure that you've already got that product market fit.
Mm.
So make sure that you've already put your product into some, test market of some sort, and you've already sold some and you know that people really like it. Otherwise, your investment may or may not come back. So that product market fit is key. And along with that, keep in mind that when you're working with designers, a lot of designers require that you have the copy ready to go. So like, let's say you're hiring a design agency, just keep in mind, it's going to take you time to work with a copywriter on the copy first, and make sure that you have that in mind when you're thinking through your timeline. But yeah, that product market fit is important. If you are still finalizing the manufacturing of your product and the ingredient list is a little in flux, that's something to keep in mind too, because you really want a copywriter that you hire to be able to highlight the best ingredients that you're using. And so you need that final ingredient list for the copywriter to be able to make the most of it and really highlight the best selling points.
Yeah. My gosh, my financial brain is like, there's like little red lights going off. Like, yeah, if you don't know if there's product market fit, and you invest in a copywriter who could write the most amazing product copy there is, but no one wants to buy your product, or you aren't going after the right audience, you could have the best copy in the world and it's not going to convert at the end of the day. I would think
Mhm.
likewise, if you don't have a lot of website traffic yet, perhaps, I don't know, it's sort of like what comes first, the chicken or the egg, right? Like you want to have good copy for when people do start arriving. But if there's really no one coming, maybe first invest in finding the audience and attracting them, before you invest in more high-end copywriting, perhaps. I mean, I'm just sort of
Yeah.
thinking out
Well,
loud.
you need both, right? Like we
Yeah.
said at the beginning, you need that traffic coming to your site and then you need to convert them.
Yeah.
I would say definitely make sure that you have a great website in place before you do like paid ads where you're spending money to bring people to your site, because you don't want to spend money on that traffic
Yeah.
and then have it just not convert and bounce off. And that's a waste.
Yeah.
But what you can do, like you said, is start creating that audience, with organic outreach and marketing efforts, and then build your website up along with that.
Yeah. I was just thinking, like, we can't assume if we invest in copywriting too early or at the wrong time, we can't assume that the copywriting is the problem, right? Like you have to have sort of
Mhm.
the whole system in place for it to all work. It's not a, if you write it, they will come kind of scenario.
Yeah. Well, when you're troubleshooting copy that's not converting, or a website that's not converting, there's this saying, list, offer, copy.
Mm.
So first you troubleshoot your list, and list just means, I mean, this is from like direct response copywriting days with mailing lists, but who is seeing this message? That could be your email list, that could be your social media following. Just think through your audience. If you don't have the right audience who has, like, let's say the budget to, purchase great food products, then your no copy is going to convert, right? You
Yeah.
need a list of people who are, interested in good food, who enjoy good food, and who have the resources. So that's first, troubleshoot your list and figure out what's going on with your audience. Um, a place to start, something that people don't think of sometimes once they've been in business a while and collecting a bunch of email addresses, and they're like, oh, I sent an email and I didn't get sales from it. Well, is your email list engaged? Like, have you gotten those click-throughs? And opens are a little hard to measure kind of nowadays, but are you getting click-throughs? Are people engaging with your list? Or are these people who signed up years ago have long forgotten and probably don't even see your emails, even if they wanted to? So that's something to look at, your list.
Yeah.
Second, your offer. So that is, what you're actually selling and the pricing and the benefits that come with it. So, if you require a minimum order of 3 cases of, your beverage or whatever, that might be just not an offer that's going to convert. So think through the way that you can, price your product. And of course, you're the expert on that. And what other ways you can present your offer. The things like the subscription, the minimum quantity to get, free shipping, things like that. That's all part of your offer. And then third, so if you've got a great list of people who are interested and appreciate good food, if you know that your offer is sound, then third, look at that copy. It could be the copy itself that is just not working and needs to be redone.
Love that. I think this is so helpful because as small business owners, we sometimes we have to do it all, right? And we want things to work. We want our time and our money and our energy to produce the results that we want. And I think sometimes we can hear advice, we can hear great, copywriting tips like you've provided today and think, okay, I'm going to go to the website. I'm going to make these changes based on Anna's recommendations, or I'm going to hire Anna or someone else to help me write it. But if they first take a step back and say, do I have everything that I need to be successful? Am I building an entire model that is designed to help me be successful? I think that that's a really great way to approach it. And when we look at marketing efforts through a financial lens, we go there. So I'm not a marketing expert by any means, but from the financial and data perspective, we can say, is it right to spend money on copywriting right now? Or is there another link in the chain, to use the analogy I started out with, that's not really working or optimized yet, that we should focus on first? So there's a lot of, it's like not right now investment, right? Was like, let's do other things first and make sure we're setting ourselves up for success, and then making the investment. And I think the list offer, I already forgot the last word, but what is it again?
List offer copy.
Perfect. Yeah. Thank you. So I think that is just a great framing for this conversation, and for the listeners to be able to go and do the sort of critical thinking about where they need to focus their attention, and when the time is right to invest in a copywriter, or to really spend time, modifying their copy. They're putting forth that energy and that financial investment at the right time. So super helpful. Thank you. Any other last tips or information that you think our good food business owners should have before we wrap up for the day?
Well, I started by talking about how you need to know your audience. And so when you go through and you've written your copy, or someone's written it for you, and you go back and review it through that same lens and see, is this copy really directed toward the customer and how they're going to enjoy it? Or is it about me and how I made it and how I thought about it? And, customers do appreciate your story and do want to hear the backstory and the behind the scenes. And, they will care about you. It's not that they don't, but also as consumers, they care about themselves. So review the copy and make sure that it really is customer focused.
Yeah. And you mentioned something to me off of the podcast that I want to mention, because I had a personal aha moment when you said it. And it was, I'm paraphrasing what you said, but it was something about what job the product will do for your customer. Can you share that with our listeners? Because I just think it was a great perspective to put out there. It's different than anything I'd heard before.
Yeah. So one way to make sure that your copy is really customer focused is to think about the jobs to be done framework. And this is something that you can Google, jobs to be done. But it basically means, what job does your product do for your customer? So let's say you're selling protein bars. What job does that protein bar do for your customer? I might buy it to do the job of lunch for me. It might be my lunch replacement. And that is the job that I need a product to fill in. I don't have time to make my own lunch, so I need something to do that job. And I'm going to buy your protein bar to do that. So no matter what you're selling, there's, some job that it's doing for your customer. Is it doing the job of being the, appetizer that gets the party started? Or is it being the beverage that makes, you feel like a great hostess that's serving a fancy beverage? Whatever that job is, it's doing a service for your customer. And it's really helpful if you can think through that when you're, doing your marketing.
I love that so much. I'm used to hearing what problem does your product solve? And for
Mhm.
me, that's always been so hard to wrap my brain around, even for products that I love. I love this. I don't know what problem it's solving for me other than it's like a very delicious thing that makes me feel happy, but I wasn't
Mhm.
necessarily sad before I ate it. But thinking about what job does it do, especially as a small business owner and you're a mom, like meal replacement, right? Or quick and easy meal, like that job of breakfast in just a few minutes, or, dinner that can be put on the table really quickly after a long day. It just, I think framing it as a job, I loved it so much. I thank you for mentioning it to me and thank you for sharing it here. Well, I just want to thank you for joining us today. I think it's everything in business is sort of connected to money in some way, and having sales, generating revenue, growing that top line is a big part of having a successful business, and copywriting and selling product is a big piece of that. So thank you for sharing your time with us, sharing your knowledge with us. If folks want to find you and follow you or learn more from you, where can they do that?
Yeah, so my website is annakbradshaw.com, and you can sign up for my newsletter there. I send out a newsletter every Thursday with, copywriting and marketing tips. Of course, I have more, free tips on my blog, and a downloadable guide you can get there to help you approach writing your own website copy. I also love connecting on Instagram at Anna K. Bradshaw. Just look for Anna Bradshaw Copywriting.
Thank you. And we'll link to the website inside the show notes for today as well. Anna, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thanks for having me, Sarah.
Thank you so much for joining me here today. If you haven't yet, please consider rating, reviewing, and subscribing to this podcast. It's the #1 way that you can show your support for the show and help us reach more food and beverage business owners. If you'd like to continue the conversation, join us in the free Profitable Food Business community. You can grab the link to join in the show notes.